Hello and welcome to day one of the eShopperReviews 2023 Game Awards. Today we'll be talking about specialty awards on the Nintendo Switch platform, our sort of catch-all for awards that don't quite fit into the other days. Many of these will be awards for games that excel in one particular way or another, like the funniest game or best multiplayer. We'll start by talking about the 2022 Second Chance Awards. What is this one?
So I have one of these every year, and this is basically for games that didn't make it into the previous year of awards because I hadn't played them yet. Every year, there's no way I'm going to play every single game that comes out on Nintendo Switch. There are thousands of games that release on that platform. It's just not possible.
We don't have the time.
Yeah. And because of that, stuff's going to slip through the cracks, and there are great games every year that I miss out on playing on until the following year, and I don't just want those to go without recognition. So this is those games, the games that I really enjoyed but didn't play in time for last year's Game Awards.
So what made second place?
Well, actually, we got a top 10 here. So, number 10 is Yars Recharged. Number 9 is Let's Build a Zoo. Number 8 is Lost in Play. Number 7 is Tunic.
Okay.
Number 6 is Melatonin.
Okay.
Number 5 is Lil Gator Game. Number 4 is Inscription. Yeah, you liked Inscription. Number 3 is Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Number 2 is the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. And the number 1 game that I really wish I'd played in 2022 so that I could have named it in the Game Awards, because it certainly would have made it into a lot of categories, is Chained Echoes.
Why that one?
Chained Echoes, there's a lot of similarities between that game and this year's Sea of Stars, in that both of them are kind of callbacks to the classic era of JRPGs. However, Chained Echoes, I feel very strongly echoes, the classic game Xenogears, in that it is a massive epic saga involving the fate of all of humanity and going through ages of existence and involving mech battles and epic fights and magic, and it's got this amazing story, it's got a wonderful soundtrack, it's got some really clever combat mechanics, and I just fell in love with it. You'll see later in this, when we talk about the most played games of the year, I put a lot of hours into this game, and that is because I absolutely loved it.
All right. Next up is the top 10 games I wish I could have played before writing this, but didn't get around to doing in time.
This is games that, it's kind of the flip side of what we just talked about. That was games that I couldn't get to in time for the 2022 awards. These are games that I still haven't gotten to, and I'd really love to play them. Maybe they would be games that I would name for this year's awards, but I just haven't gotten to them yet.
So what are they?
Number 10 is Tin Hearts. Number 9, Rune Factory 3 Special. Number 8, Brock the Investigator. 7, Cassette Beasts. 6, Chants of Sinar. 5, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. 4, The Case of the Golden Idol. 3, Born of Bread. 2, Final Fantasy 1 through 6 Pixel Remaster Collection, and 1, Super Mario RPG.
You didn't get to touch Super Mario RPG?
There were so many good games this year, and that came out late in the year.
It did.
Nintendo games rarely go on discount, and this is no exception to that.
And
it's a remake of a game that I've already played, and without getting a discount, I just didn't feel like it was justified me spending I want to say I think it was a full $60. Yeah, I just couldn't justify spending that much money on a remake of a game that I played a while ago. As great as it was, as much as I loved it, I'm like, this year's Game Awards is just going to have to go without that. Maybe I'll name it in next year's Second Chance Awards. We'll see.
Best port or remake?
So I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
With this, I kept in mind a couple of things. First of all, this is for both ports and remakes. So, if you're going to preserve the original game, how well did you preserve it? If you're going to completely reimagine the game, how good of a job did you do transforming it? But also, how many features did you have? How good did you make sure that the quality of the game was? And overall, how much would people want to play this game today as opposed to, when it was originally released?
So, what are they?
Okay. So the runners up for this, Trombone Champ. You gotta admit, the motion controls in Trombone Champ.
That was a fun one.
Yeah, really good. Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. Star Ocean, The Second Story R. Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Quake 2. And the winner of Best Port or Remake goes to Metroid Prime Remastered.
Okay, I can see that. I
actually had a real struggle this year between the top two because Quake 2 is pretty much just a straight port, but it is an amazing port. The quality is impeccable. It has tons of extra features, tons of options. There was so much love put into this port, and I feel like Quake 2 it's a guide to follow for anyone who wants to bring a classic game to modern platforms. Like, if you can get anywhere near as good as they got with Quake 2, you're doing something right. However, Quake 2 wasn't the game that I ended up giving this award to. That goes to Metroid Prime Remastered. Because Quake 2 was a good game. Metroid Prime Remastered is one of the greatest games ever made. And they made it better here in many ways. They took the original... They could have just ported the game straight to the Nintendo Switch, and it would have been great. People would have loved it. I would have loved it. But they didn't do that. They actually remade the graphics to make them look better and make them look great by modern standards. And even the original game looked fantastic. They look even better now. They remade the controls. A lot of people might have wondered if they were going to bring Metroid Prime to a modern platform. Would they have the GameCube version's original kind of weird one-stick controls? Would they have had the Wii version's motion controls? Would they try and redo it with two-stick controls? Well, they ended up giving us all three of those options, plus a fourth one that's kind of a hybrid. And I feel like that's way more than anyone could have ever hoped for this game. It's like, no matter how you want to play this game, you can play it that way. It'll look great. It'll play great. It has plenty of extra content as well. If this game had not come out years ago and wasn't disqualified for a lot of the other awards, this game would be winning so many awards this year. It would be a contender for Game of the Year if it wasn't for the fact that it's kind of an old game, so it's not really fair to consider it. But if that wasn't the case, yeah, this is a truly magnificent game, and it's a truly magnificent port.
So this is
a remake, I guess. Sorry.
Oh.
I don't know what to consider. It's kind of halfway between port and remake.
That's fair. So the next one is Best Compilation / Collection.
This one I like to give out to give people a heads up, not just what's a good collection of games, like, hey, you can get a bunch of really good games here in this package, but also what's a good value. If you're spending so and so much money out of this, you want to get good bang for your buck if you're buying multiple games at once.
Of course.
So all of these, I feel like, have some good games and hopefully a really good value as well.
What are they?
So the runners-up for this are Persona 3 Portable plus Persona 4 Golden Bundle, Dracneck and Friends Puzzle Bundle 6 games, Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, Quake plus Quake 2 Enhanced Bundle, and Bit Trip Collection. And the winner for this award is Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp.
Okay, that I can agree, yeah.
This one was I would say it's in development hell forever, but that's not entirely accurate. It was delayed because of real-world stuff that was going on.
You mean COVID?
That might have played a factor into it, but the fact that this is a game about war, where they have fun little caricatures of Russian-esque characters.
Ooh.
And there are actually wars in real life going on involving real-life Russian characters that are maybe less lovable than the characters depicted in this game.
Okay.
Yeah, so little controversy there, but not their fault. I mean, these are games that were originally released on the Game Boy Advance years ago. So this is a pair of games that, if we just got ports of them to the modern platform, I mean, they'd be enjoyable. But they went the full remake route, gave them these beautiful modern visuals that are still faithful to the original visuals. They completely remade both games and still packed them together in one package. They probably could have gotten away with just remaking one and still selling it. That sounds like a Nintendo thing to do. I mean, they're kind of doing that with Mario vs. Donkey Kong a little later this year. But no, we got both of these games. These were developed by WayForward, who does really good work on a lot of their games. And this is just an all-around great package. And anyone who enjoys strategy games, I think this is a great way to go.
A new award category for 2023 is Best Sequel. And I feel like we both know who's going to win this one.
To be clear, Best Sequel isn't just the best game that is a sequel. I feel like it's important to distinguish this because there are a lot of games that have a 2 or a 3 or a 5 or whatever that are still amazing games. That's not what I'm looking for here. What I'm looking for this category is the best game that builds on what was in the previous game in the series, or that improves upon the previous game. I'm looking for, maybe the previous game was great, but this one's better. Or maybe the previous game was terrible, and this one kind of rights the wrongs that were done in the previous one.
Okay, so what do you got?
The runners-up are 30XX, Theatrhythm Final Barline, Pikmin 4, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and Blasphemous 2.
Who's the winner?
The winner is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, that better have been the winner. I would have been like, what are you talking about?
I don't feel like saying that this was an improvement over Breath of the Wild is entirely accurate to the kind of feeling I'm going for here. That's not it. It's more along the lines of Breath of the Wild was absolutely incredible. It was one of the greatest games ever made. It was mind-blowing for a lot of players.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you follow that up? But even more than that, you're making a game set in the same world. How do you still make it interesting and fun and unique and not just like I'm going through the same motions all over again? It's like trying to make lightning strike twice, or trying to follow up a really great opening act. How do you top that? And despite the fact that I imagine nobody could have expected any way that Nintendo could have followed up quite possibly the greatest video game of all time, and yet they managed it. I don't necessarily think that Tears of the Kingdom is better than Breath of the Wild. I think they both kind of do their own thing a bit.
Yeah.
But it gives us a different perspective on that same world. It recontextualizes everything. It says, last time you were struggling to explore this world. Now we're giving you the tools to master it. We want you to be able to create these crazy machines to fly all over the place or wreak havoc on enemies. We want you to see it from high up in the sky in these islands that are miles above the earth. We want you to plunge down underneath the earth and see an entirely new world underneath the one that already existed. And it kind of makes you think about everything in Breath of the Wild in a completely different way. I've heard a lot of people saying that they just don't feel like they could go back to Breath of the Wild after playing Tears of the Kingdom. I don't know that I feel the same way, but I definitely feel like it'll seem a lot more limited to go back because now you have all of these tools that make it about conquering this amazing world in all kinds of interesting ways where previously you were kind of trying to survive it.
I greatly prefer the story in Tears of the Kingdom as well.
Yeah, that was an element that they did improve quite a bit, I feel like. A lot of people felt like there was a good amount of environmental storytelling that was being done in Breath of the Wild, but the actual main story was kind of a little underwhelming. And this time around, I definitely feel like that was something they improved on. The final boss, I think, was much better in this game than
Yes.
in the previous. There are all kinds of things that I can point to that are improved upon here. So, yeah, I definitely feel like as far as best sequel goes, this definitely earns its spot.
Next up, best game for kids and casual players.
Pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yes, very.
This isn't just going to be like best kiddie game, but the most accessible, easy for anyone, regardless of how much experience you have, to pick up a controller and just start playing. The runners-up are Alicon, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, Samba de Amigo Party Central, Trombone Champ, WarioWare Move It, and the winner is Super Mario Bros. Wonder.
I felt like a lot of those games used the motion controls.
A lot of them did, and I feel like a lot of the motion control games are pretty accessible for anyone. You waggle your arms around to do things. That's easy enough for most people to do.
Oh, yeah.
However, when I thought about it, it's really hard to beat a Mario game for a game that anyone could just pick up and immediately know what they're supposed to do. Oh, it's Mario. He jumps on things. And they did a good job of not only making it accessible for just about anyone who wants to play, and there are even accessibility options in there with the badge system where you can change around the way the game plays so that it's easier. They made accessibility characters where you can't really die as these characters unless you fall into a pit. But even beyond making it accessible, they also made it interesting, where each level has something new and different going on to keep people interested, even if they're not necessarily normally a gamer. So I feel like for kids and casual players, yeah, Super Mario Bros. Wonder is definitely top of the list for me.
Best multiplayer.
This category includes both online multiplayer and local multiplayer, co-op, competitive, running the whole gamut here.
What do we got?
So the runners-up are Rubber Bandits, F-Zero 99, Super Crazy Rhythm Castle, Fae Farm, WarioWare Move It,
Yeah.
and the winner for best multiplayer is Trombone Champ.
Yeah.
I have to imagine anyone who plays this game in a party setting with a bunch of friends tooting and making a cacophonous just jumble of noise. This game has good time written all over it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so silly and so stupid and so fun. It's at its core just a basic music rhythm game, but the fact that it's by the mechanism that you play it, it's kind of a little difficult to play, but that's kind of the point, in that you're not expected to do perfectly. You're expected to do as close to being decent as possible. And it's that gap between being decent and being horrible that makes for so much fun, where you can just kind of barely recognize the song that you're playing, and that makes it just a ton of fun. And having one player playing it, that's fun. Having a bunch of players trying to hit the same notes all at the same time and kind of sort of failing at it, that's amazing. So, yeah, best multiplayer, I definitely feel like Trombone Champ earns its award here.
Best new free-to-play game.
I gotta be honest, there were not many great free-to-play games this year. And there were some free-to-play games that I just didn't include in this list because I'm like, it might technically be one of the best by default, but I really don't want to include a by default game here. And don't let that take away from the games and the runners-up here or the winner of this category, because there's still some good fun to be had. Just know there have definitely been better years for free-to-play games on Nintendo Switch.
Okay, so what are they?
The runners-up are Tray Racers, Disney Speedstorm, and Pinball M.
The winner?
The winner is Palia.
Why that one?
Palia is a picture kind of a little bit like Stardew Valley. It's kind of a farming RPG type game. And it's been dubbed as an MMO, and I think it barely fits into that category. you have instances of, I want to say, like 25 players apiece.
On the Switch?
On the Switch.
Wow.
It's on Switch and PC, cross-play, by the way, between those two. And while it's instanced, anyone can walk into or out of your game at any given moment. And they do a good job of giving you challenges that will be easier if you have more players playing. It's got a huge world to explore, and it does the basic gameplay stuff right. It has a very good farming RPG type gameplay. And that combined with tons of activities to do, tons of, a pretty big world to explore, this is a pretty solid free-to-play experience. I will say the performance on Nintendo Switch leaves something to be desired, but overall, this is a great game, well worth playing on Nintendo Switch, and if you want to play a great game that costs you $0, this is the one to get in 2023.
Fair. All right. Next up, we have the best value.
So I kind of touched on this a bit when going through the best bundles earlier, but this category is very specifically getting bang for your buck for every dollar and every penny spent. And it doesn't matter if it's a bundle, not a bundle. This is, I want to spend the least amount of money to get the best game. So, the runners-up for this category are Minute Fun Racer, which costs $3. Alicon, which costs $16. Sanabi, which costs $15. This Way Madness Lies, which costs $10. And Quake plus Quake 2 Enhanced Bundle, which costs $15.
The winner?
The winner is Vampire Survivors, which costs only $5. This game made huge waves in 2022 on other platforms. It kind of kicked off its own kind of subgenre, the bullet heaven genre, where you're shooting tons and tons of stuff into hordes of enemies. And it had a lot of people talking then about Game of the Year status for it. It's a highly beloved game. And the port to Nintendo Switch is great. I have no complaints about the Nintendo Switch version of the game. It is a wonderful game, tons of fun, and for only $5, it is just a no-brainer. It is so easy to pull the trigger on that one because it is tons of fun and it is so darn cheap.
Funniest game.
Funniest game might seem like an obvious category, but every year I kind of have to balance two ends of this, which is the game that in and of itself is funny versus the game where you have a lot of funny stuff going on while you're playing it.
I also feel like it's just very subjective.
Yeah, it's subjective. Someone else might feel completely different about the games in this, but someone else isn't doing these awards. I'm doing these awards, so I made the selections.
What'd you make?
Okay, so the runners-up in this category are Talk to Strangers. This Way Madness Lies.
I agree.
Shadows Over Loathing. Alicon. And Trombone Champ.
Oh, that was a funny game.
So, the winner is WarioWare Move It.
Yeah.
Now, I gotta say, now that I've gotten to this point, both Trombone Champ and WarioWare Move It were kind of neck and neck, both when it came to best multiplayer and funniest game, because both of them are super funny and both of them are really great multiplayer games. But in the end, I had to give multiplayer to Trombone Champ and I had to give funniest game to WarioWare Move It. This is a game where
there was a game mode where you're picking somebody's nose.
Yeah, there's picking someone's nose. There is a micro game where in order to pass, you need to curtsy at another woman properly.
Oh my gosh.
There's one where you're plunging a toilet and a little, I think it's called a kappa, comes out of it. It's so ridiculous. And WarioWare has always been like this. I feel like a lot of people kind of take it for granted. Yes, WarioWare's wacky, it's silly, it's funny, whatever, move on. But it's like they are consistently creative and silly and absurd with all of the new microgames they put out in each installment. And this year I feel like it was particularly great. So yeah, WarioWare Move It, funniest game in 2023 as far as I'm concerned.
Most underrated games.
So these are games that I specifically chose for having a Metacritic score that was lower than what I felt they deserved. Now, it could be a game where the Metacritic score was everybody thought it was bad and I thought it was good. It could be everybody thought it was good, but I thought it was great. So...
What are they?
Okay. So, the runners-up are WarioWare Move It, which got a Metacritic score of 75.
Okay.
Samba de Amigo Party Central, which got a Metacritic score of 71.
I can understand that one, actually.
Disney Speedstorm, which got a Metacritic score of 65.
Okay.
And the winner for most underrated game on Nintendo Switch in 2023 is Fae Farm, which got a Metacritic score of 77.
I think that's fitting, actually.
You think that it should have gotten a 77?
I think a 77 is pretty fair.
See, for me, Fae Farm was one of my favorite games of the year this year. And for it to only get 77, I feel like that's really low. And this is a game that I feel like improved upon the Stardew Valley formula, and everybody loves Stardew Valley. I just felt like this deserved way more attention and way higher praise than it got this year.
That's fair. That's fair. Next up, we have the most overlooked games of the year.
So, for this, I looked at both Metacritic and OpenCritic, and I looked specifically for games that just hadn't gotten enough reviews to even get a score on those platforms. It is criminal that these games didn't get played enough to even get reviews because they're so darn good.
What are they?
The runners-up in this category are Backpack Hero, which has no Metacritic score on Nintendo Switch.
Oh, it's such a good game.
Sanabi, which has no Metacritic score on Nintendo Switch. Minute Fun Racer, which has no Metacritic score for any platform and no OpenCritic score. Fishing Vacation, which has no Metacritic score for any platform and no OpenCritic score. And Six Stargate Star Rail, which has no Metacritic score for any platform and no OpenCritic score.
In the top?
And the winner is Alicon, which has no Metacritic score for any platform and no OpenCritic score.
You know, I feel like a lot of people ignored that game because it was too much like Pokemon Snap.
It was very much like Pokemon Snap, but I feel like it did a very good job of channeling that energy and doing unique things with it. However, more than that, this is a game that came out on PC in 2021. And still to this day, It doesn't have enough reviews on any platform to have a Metacritic score or an OpenCritic score. And I think that's terrible. This is an amazing game. It does a great job with the kind of gameplay it's going for. It's charming, it's accessible, it's visually very nice. There is no reason that people should have overlooked this game, but they did. So hopefully me putting this out there gets more people to pay this game some attention.
Next up is Most Original.
Again, I feel this is fairly self-explanatory.
So what were your finds?
The runners-up for the most original game are The Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood, Patrick's Parabox, Squad 51 versus the Flying Saucers, Power Wash Simulator, and Trombone Champ. You're going to giggle every time I bring up Trombone Champ, are you?
It's so funny. It's so funny and random.
Yeah. And the winner for most original game goes to Backpack Hero.
Ooh, very good game. I'm so sad that people overlooked that game.
But we're talking about most original, and Backpack Hero did something that I thought was truly incredible, which is it took a game mechanic that a lot of people feel like is terrible, one of the things that they hate about RPGs, which is inventory management.
Mm-hmm.
They turned that and they made it into the main mechanic in the game. This is what everything else in the game is built on. And that takes a lot of guts to take something that people hate and say that we're going to make our game based on that. And not only did they do that, they did it extremely well and made a really fun game out of it. I cannot say enough good things about Backpack Hero, and the fact that they took something that a lot of people hate and made it into something truly excellent. Definitely deserving a most original game, in my opinion.
Most efficient use of file storage space.
For Nintendo Switch owners, storage space is at a premium.
Yep.
You only have so much to use. And you can expand on it some with a micro SD card. But as someone who has I think it's a 1 terabyte micro SD card.
Yeah.
That still gets taken up pretty quickly with all of the games you put on it. So I really appreciate when a game developer makes not just a great game, but a great tiny game, because it means that I don't have to worry about playing triage with my Nintendo Switch games to get it to fit.
Which games made the list then?
The runners-up in this category are Dredge at 1.3 gigabytes, Alicon at 1.4 gigabytes, Patrick's Parabox at 218 megabytes, and Tents and Trees at 151 megabytes.
The winner?
The winner is Nuclear Blaze at 155 megabytes.
That's impressive.
So it's more impressive when you see the game in motion, because this is a game where fire is almost a living creature, spreading, constantly moving, flowing. And this is such a tiny game, and for something so visually stimulating to be done in such a small size, I feel that's super impressive. This game does so much with so little, and I really appreciate it.
The wow, this game was way better than I expected award.
Jen, you might be surprised to hear that this is the award that I give to a game that is, wow, way better than I expected.
Oh my gosh. Okay, who won?
First of all, the runners-up.
Mm-hmm.
The runners-up for this category are Fae Farm, Sanabi, Power Wash Simulator.
Ugh.
Not a fan, I take it.
No.
It's not for everyone.
It's not for everyone.
But it's still much better than I thought it would be. So, moving on. The Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood and Fishing Vacation. And the winner for, wow, this game was way better than I expected, is Alicon. This is a game, like you said not too long ago, it's just another Pokemon Snap clone.
Yep.
But it's not just another Pokemon Snap clone.
I think it elaborates better.
It uses that as a starting point, and then it expands outwards in interesting directions, where each of the little individual critters is its own unique character, and they have their own quests for you. And you can explore the world that they're in and not just be stuck on the track all the time, like in Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
I feel like I went into this with no expectations. I didn't know what I was in for. It looked like, okay, it's kind of a, a cutesy Pokemon Snap sort of thing. And I came out of this extremely impressed with a game that I felt went way harder and, way farther than it needed to.
Best third-party publisher.
To be clear, I am not giving this award based on how they treat their employees or how they treat their customers. This doesn't have to do with, are these the good guys or the bad guys? I'm not making that judgment here.
Mm-hmm.
This is solely based on how well did they support the Nintendo Switch this year? How good were the games that they released on Nintendo Switch? So, the runners-up in this category are Chucklefish, which released Wild Frost, Wargroove 2, and the Wargroove plus Wargroove 2 bundle.
Mm-hmm.
Devolver Digital, which released the Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood and Minute Funracer. Team 17, which released Dredge, Blasphemous 2, and the Blasphemous plus Blasphemous 2 bundle. Wow. Try saying that 5 times fast. Annapurna Interactive, which released Cocoon and Outer Wilds. And Square Enix, which released Octopath Traveler 2, Theatrhythm Final Bar Line, Power Wash Simulator, and Star Ocean The Second Story R.
The winner?
The winner is Sega, which released 2 Point Hospital and 2 Point Campus Double Pack, Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden Bundle, Persona Collection, Etrian Odyssey Origins Collection, Etrian Odyssey HD, Etrian Odyssey 2 HD, Etrian Odyssey 3 HD, Samba de Amigo Party Central, and Sonic Superstars. Oh, wow, that was difficult to get through. That was So a lot of that is bundles. However, the core games that we're looking at here are all fantastic. Persona 3 and Persona 4 are games that we have been waiting to get to Nintendo Switch since the Nintendo Switch launched, and I am so pleased to finally get them here. The Etrian Odyssey trilogy of remakes. I have some issues with the quality of the remakes themselves, but there's still 3 outstanding games that I am thrilled to get on Nintendo Switch. Samba de Amigo Party Central is one of my favorite music rhythm games this year. It is so much fun to play. And Sonic Superstars, well, I think it's a bit overrated, is still a very fun platformer. And I kind of went back and forth on whether to give this to Sega or Square Enix, but in the end, that list of games was just so big and had so much quality, I had to give it to Sega. And it's interesting to note, I realized as I was making this, every year that I've done the Best Third-Party Publisher Award, Sega has been one of the runners-up. Every year, consistently. This is its first year winning, and I feel like it's well-deserved.
Top 10 games that would win a lot more awards this week if they weren't disqualified due to how old their original release is.
So, Jen, would you believe that this is a list of games that would win a lot more awards this week if they weren't disqualified?
I'm shaking my head.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just get through it. Number 10, Talk to Strangers. Number 9, Quake 2. Number 8, We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie. Number 7, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. Number 6, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Number 5, Star Ocean The Second Story R. Number 4, Outer Wilds. Number 3, Tents and Trees. Number 2, Persona 4 Golden. And number 1, Metroid Prime Remastered.
I can definitely agree to all of those. Yeah.
Really great games, but they're all older games, so can't really give it to them.
All right. Next up is my top 10 most played games. Well, Jake's top 10 most played games of 2023.
Yes, this isn't Jen's top 10.
Nope.
I'm not sure Jen even has a top 10 most played Nintendo Switch games for the year.
I'm a PC gamer.
Jen is a PC gamer. Although you did play a fair amount of one particular game on Nintendo. Well, actually a couple games you played.
Yeah, a couple. But what were yours?
Okay, so first of all, I should note that this list is based off of a Nintendo.com page that they put up every year displaying your stats at the end of the year. But this only goes through to November 30th. So it doesn't include any of the games that I played after that point. Despite that, I can name one game in particular that would be on this list if it was counted in amongst that, which is Disgaea 7, which I played for, I want to say, 18 or 19 hours to review it.
Okay.
However, putting that game aside, the top 10 are Theatrhythm Final Bar Line at 13 hours, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe at 13 hours, Vampire Survivors, 13 hours, Sea of Stars, 15 hours. Let's Build a Zoo, 17 hours. Crush Crush, 17 hours. Atari Flashback Classics, 18 hours. Slay the Spire, 42 hours. Chained Echoes, 72 hours. And the number 1 most played game of 2023.
Ooh, surprise, surprise. I think I know what it is.
The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom at 223 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, I explored every corner of that world. I uncovered all of the shrines.
Wow.
I completed all of the light routes. I found a lot of Koroks, and I created a lot of cool death machines. Oh, it just occurred to me, in addition to Disgaea 7, there's also Fae Farm, which you and I have put a good amount of time into.
Oh, yeah.
That might have made this list too, except we played a lot of that in December. So, yeah, not exactly a definitive list, and some of these might seem odd, like, what the heck is Crush Crush? That is an idle game that I've actually stopped playing at this point, so it will not be in next year's list, I'm guessing. Atari Flashback Classics, the reason that I spent so much time on that was because it has 150 games in it, and I played each and every one of them.
Oh,
for
you
the
dedicated
review.
man.
I was actually really surprised to see Slay the Spire on this list. I didn't remember putting that much time into it, but I guess that's just how addictive it is, where time just disappears as you play it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did mention I played a lot of Chained Echoes, and that's number 2 on this list. So, yeah, some good games in here.
Jake's top 10 most anticipated games of 2024.
Again, I wonder if you even have 10 games that you're anticipating on Nintendo Switch next year.
On Switch, no. PC, yes.
Do you have... okay, before we go on, I'm curious. Do you have any games that you're anticipating on Switch next year?
Not game, more so the console.
You're curious to see what follows.
Oh, everybody's curious about it.
Yeah, I'm there with you too. I'm definitely curious to see what Nintendo has to reveal. But we're talking about games, and these are games that are either announced for next year or presumed to be coming out on Nintendo Switch next year. I hope that we will see them on Switch next year. And I'm not going for whatever Nintendo's next platform is, because that's, I feel like, reaching a bit too far.
Mm-hmm.
So just looking at Nintendo Switch. In my top 10, from 10 to 1 are Bandletale, a League of Legends story, Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney Trilogy, Braid Anniversary Edition, Princess Peach Showtime.
Ooh, I am looking forward to that one.
Oh, okay. Shantae Advance Risky Revolution, The Gecko Gods, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Blade Chimera, Hades 2, and the number one game I am most looking forward to, hopefully in 2024. I mean, I'm kind of jumping to an assumption here, but I hope is Metroid Prime 4.
Ah.
Yeah, that one, I think it's been something like 5 years since we last heard anything about it. So it's time. Now, will it get pushed onto Nintendo's next system? Will it release on the Switch finally? I don't know.
I hope it comes on the next system.
I don't know. But one way or the other, I really hope we see it this year, finally.
All right. Last one is, did last year's top 10 most anticipated games meet expectations?
Again, another kind of self-explanatory title.
Yep.
Number 10 for last year was Pikmin 4. And for this one, yeah, I think mostly it did. It was pretty good. I was a little disappointed in the multiplayer, but overall...
yes, I was disappointed in that one too.
Overall, I still thought it was a magnificent game, and I think Pikmin fans had a lot to be thankful for this year, and Pikmin 4 was very much a large part of why that was. Number 9 was Persona 3 Portable and Persona 4 Golden Bundle. Having not actually played either of these games prior to this... Persona 3, I was kind of iffy on. Like, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And having played Persona 5, it was definitely not up to par with that. But Persona 4 I actually really thoroughly enjoyed. And it's not as flashy as Persona 5 is, but other than that, I might actually like it a bit better. It's a very good game. Number 8 in this list was Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. And I liked it. I thought it was good. I don't know how high my expectations were, but I feel like it was alright.
Yeah.
Number 7 was Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. And I thought this was a pretty good collection, but I also had forgotten just how samey all of these games are, where you could pick a random one in the bunch, and it would play a lot like each and every other game in this collection. They're good, but it was alright. Number 6 was Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End, and the Secret Key. And I'm iffy on this. I think overall it's probably the best game in its trilogy, but it's also the most underwhelming. I felt like playing the first Atelier Ryza was like a big, wow, this is amazing experience. And the second one was, oh, cool, this is kind of expanded out from that. And playing the third one is like, okay, this is alright. And it builds on the earlier games in great ways, but I don't feel like I got that wow factor like the earlier games brought me. Number 5 in this list was Theatrhythm Final Bar Line. And I think it did a good job. I wish it made better use of the touchscreen, but I think what it did by converting everything to standard gamepad controls worked really well, and the amount of music in this game is absolutely massive, and I am so pleased with that. So much good music in this game. Number 4 is Sea of Stars, and yeah, I think it met my expectations. There was some part of me that was really hoping for this to be a true spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger, and in the end I don't think it was really aiming for that, but it was still very good. Number 3 is Octopath Traveler 2, and I think it mostly did, but I was still really disappointed that the characters didn't interact with each other more than they did. Number 2 was Hades 2, and I can't really say because it
hasn't come out. Yeah.
And number 1 was Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and I think it's safe to say that, I was pretty pleased with this one.
Over 200 hours, and yes.
And it might have exceeded my expectations, so yeah, very good.
All right, folks, that does it for this day of the 2023 eShopperReviews Game Awards. Thank you again for joining us, and please check back throughout the week for additional awards. See you all next time.
Later.